Good afternoon. Welcome to this Governance and Audit Committee on the 13th of November 2025. I'm Councillor Tim Harrison, Chairman of the Committee. To my left is my Vice Chairman, Councillor Paul Wood. To my right is Democratic Services Officer Joshua Mann. Welcome and warm wishes to all present and to those who may be viewing online. Could I remind you please to ensure your mobiles are switched off or on silent mode, please. And also maybe if you can, keep them away from the microphones. We've not been notified of any fire alarm practice, but should the alarm sound, can you please move swiftly to the closest exit and make your way outside to the front of the building and on the green outside located on St Peter's Hill. Could I ask that if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please indicate by raising your hand and get the attention of the Vice Chair, please. May I remind you this meeting will be recorded and can also be watched as a live stream or later by the SKDC webcast. We'll go straight on with agenda item 1. Do we have any apologies, Josh, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Robert Leadenham. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Item 2, are there any members here present that may have an interest to declare? Please remember, if that comes apparent during the course of the meeting, you can let me know then as well. No? Okay, thank you. Move swiftly on to the minutes of the meeting. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September. Are there any questions other than, I'm not interested in typos or anything like that, but any salient points anybody got to make? If not, can I get a proposer, please? Councillor Lay, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Rayside, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Or anonymous, as Councillor Stoops said. I'm going to make a slight change in the order of things now. We did have external audit, but for reasons of travel, we're going to switch items 5 and 4. We're going to go to internal audit first, and I'm going to go and ask them for BDO to deliver their report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So you have the one paper today, which is our progress report, and there's a review that we've completed, which is in line with what we reported to you last time on performance management, which I'll summarise in a moment. What you can see from the progress that we've made, there are now 4 reviews that are completed in the plan, and we are on track still to have things completed by the end of the year, as was the case in the prior year. And upcoming reviews, the next committee will be a bit heavier from an internal audit perspective. We also have a review on Treasury Management, which you obviously just received a briefing on, and so they will come to the January committee. The paper for this meeting is on performance management. So this received a substantial opinion on design, a moderate opinion on effectiveness, with a medium finding that's been outlined. So effective performance management is obviously a critical part of the Council's functions, and the framework that you have in place is your strategic objectives. Your corporate plan for 24-27, which was issued in January 24, had 5 strategic priorities, and as a Council you monitor these through KPIs, key performance indicators, to check how they are performing against those different strategic objectives. Now, these are reported to Cabinet, to overview and scrutiny committees in quarter 2s and 4, and quarterly to the corporate management team. And these are your arrangements to make sure that you can oversee those processes. So our review was to look at those arrangements from approval of that plan and the KPIs, the structures you have in place. You have a Power BI dashboard which has all the data behind these key performance indicators and how that is presented and monitored as part of the process. And we did speak to a member as part of the review as well. So there's lots of positives that are outlined. I think a couple I wanted to highlight is that the KPIs that we've identified are also embedded into your service delivery plans, which is a good practice, so that those who are doing service delivery have a clear line of sight of what they're doing, that maps into service delivery, that maps into your corporate objectives as well. There is a Power BI dashboard. There's allocated owners for each of these KPIs, a RAG rating, red, amber, green, as to how they're performing, a narrative to explain the reason behind these, and escalation processes if things are not quite on track. And I believe members also had a briefing on the new framework in January 2025 as well, which is positive to see. The medium finding that we've outlined is that whilst all of those structures are there, and there's a substantial opinion on the design of controls, there is a positive opinion on the effectiveness being moderate, although there is the one medium, which is that we did identify instances, some instances, where some KPIs that are reported were not reported, so they weren't issued in those different structures that I mentioned. The data was not updated so that it was up to date for that meeting that it was being presented to, and some were sent with comments with words such as TBC, meaning to be confirmed or to be looked at. And when we've looked at this further with management, there were some changes as a new, obviously, Director of Housing and Head of Technical Services that came in, and as part of that resource adjustment, it meant that a few of these things did just slip off or not quite have that commentary. But when I stand back from that, when you look at your KPIs as an overall, and you do have dashboards on this, the vast majority, I think it's 90% plus, are being achieved or met or are on track to be achieved in line with their expectations. So the structures are there. Generally, you're likely to meet those KPIs based on that information, but some of the reporting and those instances that I've identified could improve, which is what has led to that medium finding in the report. Happy to take any questions on the progress report or obviously this performance management report as well.
Thank you for that, Gurpreet. Do I have any questions from the committee? No. Gurpreet, I've got just probably a couple from myself. When you say that the indicators removed, so it was policy change that was causing that more than data gaps, was it?
So there were a few, and I may have a specific example here. So for example, Econ 8, which is your Economic Development Priority KPI, there were no updates recorded in quarter 3, and in quarter 1 and 2, the update was TBC Action Plan due 31st of March 2025. So in that circumstance, there's an update that's been given that has TBC, and then there wasn't an update given in Q3. So the point we're raising here is that where there is an issue due to changes in teams or an inability to report on a particular KPI, the narrative should be very clear to say, well, the reason we can't is because we're having to adjust because of a new member of staff coming in and for them to get their feet under the table, whatever it may be. For completeness, that should be recorded in there, so members and management are all clear as to why that may not have been reported, or there is a narrative which has TBC, and obviously we'd want that to be a stronger narrative.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Chairman. On that point, would you, I'm a little bit concerned that we've got to this stage where that's being picked up. Would you have expected any of the scrutiny committees to be picking that up prior to it coming to us?
The short answer would be yes. However, sat where I am right now, whether that may have happened in the meeting or not, I'm not 100%. It may well have done, and if it did, it may have been picked up there and then brought to the and picked up at the next ones. But yes, in general, if there is a KPI that's being presented, are members able to scrutinise that, challenge it, and ask for an update? Then yes, that is an expectation that would be reasonable.
If I may quickly come back, Chairman. So does that suggest a weakness in our systems of not being able to check that that has been checked?
This is overall a positive opinion, and I will just reiterate that what we have seen in this is that the vast majority of your KPIs, north of 90%, are on track, in progress, or expected to be achieved. With such a robust process as you do have, we would expect some instances of non-compliance or things that could be improved as we've identified, and therefore I would probably find it difficult to say weakness, because that may sound stronger and opposite to maybe what I want to make sure the opinion that we're saying is clear, that it is a positive opinion. It's an area for improvement, is maybe more the way I would frame it.
Councillor Stokes.
I think it's just a comment, really. I think there can be some scepticism in some respects about performance indicators. I think it's incredibly positive that we've got KPI outcomes being used to support external funding bids, and that's really a strong thing, I believe. So it's just a comment congratulations.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stokes. Capri, I've got just one more thing. I know the answer to this, but if you can give it for the committee, please. Do we still have enough internal audit coverage between now and LGR to meet statutory assurance if there was like staffing or timing changes?
Our audit plan that we have in place that takes us through to the 31st of March 26 is sufficient coverage for me to be able to give an opinion post that date. We will soon be commencing our planning process for the following year, and obviously that will have a 3-year plan. We have to be cognizant of LGR. From our perspective, our plan is still valid and will continue to be valid all the way through to LGR. The risks that you face and where our reviews focus on may change depending on that, but from a management point of view, there's good engagement. There's not been an impact on our ability to deliver based on any LGR risks at this point.
Thank you. On that note, thank you very much for a very good reporting on the whole. Thank you. That report was just for noting, so we will now go back to the external audit governance report, and I'll go to Salma, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our auditor's annual report. This is a report that we're required to present to you as part of our responsibilities as your external auditor. If I could just take you to page 14 of the pack, which is page 4 of our report, the executive summary. So this sets out the purpose of our report, our responsibilities across the financial statements work, the value for money, and other powers that we have as well as your external auditors. Now, this year we had the Public Sector Audit Appointments, the organisation that appoints us as your external auditor, set a deadline of 30th of November for us to issue this auditor's annual report. As our external audit on the financial statements is ongoing, you'll notice that this report is in draft and it very much focuses on our commentary on the value for money element of our work. Again, you're not an outlier in that respect because a lot of audits are still ongoing, but because we've got this 30th of November deadline, we are issuing these as draft format. So now if I can just take you to page 7 of our report, the main value for money kind of summary page. So as part of our value for money work, we review arrangements across the 3 domains which are listed there: financial sustainability, governance, and improving economy efficiency and effectiveness. So from page 18 of the pack and page 8 of our report onwards, we've got commentary on each of those domains. I wasn't going to go through the detail of those domains because some of that commentary you have seen at the June report that we shared with you when we shared our initial risk assessment. But I will cover the governance domain because that is one area where we've raised a risk of significant weakness. But you'll see that we've then concluded that that significant weakness hasn't culminated. So on to page 12 of our report and page 22 of the pack. So as part of the governance arrangements, we look at any regulatory kind of requirements that the organisation has. And you'll have noticed there that we've commented on the publication of the draft statement of accounts. And the deadline this year was 30th of June. And the authority did not meet that deadline. So we raised it as a weakness because then that could, culminate in actually you don't produce your accounts at all, and then you're not meeting that requirement, then we're not able to audit it, and that can just create quite a lot of delay. And for those of you that are aware of the historic kind of backlog in local authority accounts, that is initially kind of where some of those issues arose many years ago. So we raised it as initial risk of significant weakness, but then obviously we've liaised with management, we've seen we do now have the draft accounts, we are in the process of doing that audit, so our conclusion is that actually it's not a weakness, a significant weakness in the arrangements. It is something that management are aware of and they are working towards it in terms of aligning their financial reporting back to the reporting timetable so that going forward they can meet the reporting deadline. So that was the only main point that I wanted to bring out there, but I will mention a bit of context, I suppose, in terms of producing those accounts and how you compare to other local authorities as well. So you're not the only local authorities that didn't meet that June deadline, and then subsequently then authorities do prepare their draft accounts, and it means the audit is delayed. But again, referring to that historic backlog, there were quite a lot of organisations that didn't meet that deadline and the reporting timetable. and that's why we've now got a deadline of February 2026 for the current year's audit. And then the following year it moves to January, and then in 26-27 it moves to November. So I suppose we're having those discussions with management to kind of reflect that the timescales are then getting tighter, and it's just about making sure that they've got enough resource and they've got that project planning in place to make sure that those accounts they are able to produce those statement of accounts. And at the moment, from the discussions that we're having with management, we're getting the reassurances that they are. Okay, so I'm happy to take any comments or queries now.
Thank you, Salma. As you said, we've missed the account deadline 2 years in a row now. And I realise there's extenuating circumstances, etc., but is there anything tangibly different that will stop a third year in a row of this happening?
I suppose some of the context for the last 2 years is around there were some staffing changes, and then obviously this year we've had the new general ledger system in place. So I had to catch up earlier with management as well in terms of just obviously with a new system that can the first time you close a set of accounts in that new system can be very different to how you closed it in your old system. So they are considering in terms of maybe having a look at their arrangements and trying to see how they would prepare an initial, for example, draft, maybe as at the end of December, or just to kind of do a bit of a soft close, as it were, just to kind of get an idea of any other issues. But at the moment, I think we just continue to discuss it with management and kind of work closely with them in terms of timescales and their reporting kind of timetable and how that fits in with our audit reporting deadline.
Okay, thank you for that. Do I have any questions from the committee? Councillor Woolley?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if it's a question or it's certainly a comment, but on page 23 under governance, you make reference to the fact that the Code of Conduct complaints cost an additional £70,000 extra legal costs, and that there were a high volume of complaints. We have been done to death as councillors as far as training is concerned, and something is obviously not working for that amount of money, because in addition to that, I believe there's reference as well to taking on an additional person to, well, I don't know about monitor the complaints, but certainly to admin these Code of Conduct complaints. So that's the evidence. What I'm asking is, should we be... we haven't got the desired outcome. It's cost us a lot of money. Should we be looking at asking scrutiny or the Standards Committee to do a report on this? Because we can't each year...
Yes, sorry, Councillor Woolley, that's not really an opinion for...
Well, it's in the external audit.
But what you're asking for is something that should then go to... I mean, I'm quite happy to take that to Standards Committee if you want, but... What opinion are you actually wanting?
What I'm wanting, well, okay, is this usual as far as other councils are concerned? Oh.
I think you'll find in this kind of current kind of environment where everyone's got a view on everything, and there's a lot of, I'm saying some of the conduct was around kind of social media and things like that as well. So I think I would say that it's not, you're not an outlier in that respect, but I think when we've done the review, we raised it from the perspective of how much of management's time was being taken up by these kind of matters. That's why we raised it from that perspective in terms of, as part of your governance arrangements, is kind of, you want your senior management team to be focusing, and yourselves as well, to be focusing on running the council. And this is a bit of an unnecessary distraction. So that's the perspective that we raised it from. And then obviously we added a value there so that, there is a complication of it in terms of the cost as well. But, I wouldn't have the stats in terms of to compare it, but surely you read it in the press, don't you, in terms of the organisations that have similar issues as well.
Thank you, Salma. Councillor Baxter?
I agree that this is unusual. The amounts that we're talking about is unusual for a local authority, based on any conversations I've had. But I wouldn't say that that we've been done to death with training. In fact, the training's made a difference. So the period in which we spent the £70,000 or whatever it is was the first 2 years of since the election, with lots of new councillors learning how they go and having the training and so on, and some particular personalities and some particular events. The reports that have been going to the Standards Board, what do we call it, the Standards Committee, show that the number and I guess the ferocity of the Code of Conduct complaints has gone right down. I don't want to put a jinx on it, but there are far fewer standards complaints now than they were this time last year, and they are costing a lot less. So I think we've turned the corner, but who knows what's coming next week.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from the committee? Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that 70,000 is reference is the legal costs. I think people have mentioned the word training. I was really clear that we've not spent 70,000 on training. It's the legal cost of dealing with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, that's, as it says in here, additional legal costs. And I wasn't for one moment suggesting that included training as well. It's just, it seems an awful lot of money, and this was it was only in the year Councillor Baxter 24-25, so that is for one period of time.
Councillor Woolley, which would then seem to indicate that training is working by your very own methods of discussing it there. We've done extensive training and the complaints have dropped off. Correlation isn't necessarily causation, but I think it's a good reason.
But we're only halfway through the year.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's just if you could clarify something for me. It might be my misunderstanding of it. On page 7 of your report, on the value for money and the table, you've identified on that little table, identifies risk of significant weakness, and under governance it says yes, but then later on page 13, your conclusion there is that we have identified the risk, we are satisfied does not amount to a significant weakness. So is there a confusion there, or it seems to confuse me a bit that? Are they different things?
It is two different things, because we firstly perform our risk assessment. So at that point we identify there's a risk that there could be a significant weakness, and then once we identify a risk, then we perform further work, and then from that we conclude whether or not there is a significant weakness, if that makes sense. So we did identify a potential risk when we were notified that the accounts wouldn't be produced in time, but then now we've got the accounts, the audit is ongoing, and we've discussed the arrangement with management going forward, so then we now consider that weakness doesn't now arise.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No, I just have one, possibly, Salma. The new finance system that's in, I have asked Mr Wiles this the other day, but are you confident that we're not going to get any issues with that come the year end?
So the new finance system obviously comes into this current financial year, which is 25-26, and we're just concluding on 24-25. But obviously we're aware that that new system is in place, and we've already introduced our IT specialist team. So we will bring our IT specialist to look at any instances where there's a ledger migration, so you move from one system to another, because they perform various kind of procedures in addition to the ones that we would produce to kind of assess how that transfer has gone. So we've already introduced them to Mr Scott, and then as part of the 25-26 audit, we'll start that planning process in terms of what information our team needs from the council, and then how that impacts our audit. And that will be in our audit plan that you'll also see probably around about next April.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you very much for that report. Appreciate that, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 6, co-opted member of G&A committee. Now, can I just remind people, if Alan could just leave for a few moments. And can I remind people not to discuss anything that might force us into going offline. This is a report of Councillor Knowles, so I'll go to Councillor Knowles.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As the Chairman has said, this is a report which seeks your approval to extend the office of Alan Bowling in his position as an independent independent person who serves this committee. The appointment was made 12 months ago in November 25, and his appointment was for 12 months, so it is due for renewal. Now, I'm going to make one slight amendment, or I can't make an amendment apparently, but I ask somebody on the committee, if they are so minded, to make an amendment, and that would be to change the closing of this current date to April 27. This would be so that it would coincide with the financial year, and it would also prevent any slight misunderstandings there were in terms of payment last year, slight problems. And so I'm asking you, if somebody proposed before we close the matter, if somebody will extend the proposal from November 26 on to April 27. So that is that. Mr Bowling has been well received, I think, by all members of the committee. I don't believe that there are... Am I out of order? No, thank God. No, I've consulted widely on this, very widely on this, on everybody in the room, I think, except except Richard. So I've not told him about it yet, but there we are, and he's got to pay for it. Now, there's a lot of tributes paid to Alan for his efforts and for his wisdom when he does speak, and so I think it's appropriate to recommend this to you and ask for your deliberation on it. You can also, as an invitation in the agenda item, to ask you if you wish to consider the option of increasing the number of independents that we have. There's no recommendation as such at the moment, but it is something that you may wish at some stage to consider. It's in the, it gives you permission to do that, or it gives you the offer to do that. So that's our proposal, and ask for your support. Thank you.
Mr Wiles.
Just at the risk of sounding pedantic, just to be absolutely clear on the dates, because I think what I'm hearing is 31st of March 27, because that will be the end of the financial year rather than April. That was just what I just wanted to make sure, just for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, so I was actually going to propose that, Phil, that we consider for the wording, the actual year's extension to begin from 1st of April to 2026, as you said, to bring it all in line. Mr Bowling had raised with me that, generally speaking, people get a 4-year term, but I had said to him that, given the uncertainty over LGR and what's happening, I felt that currently it was better to keep it ongoing as a 1-year renewal. Does anybody have any points on that? I'll make that as a proposal if anybody wants to second that. Councillor Woolley, does anybody have any points they want to make? So can we take a vote on that then, please? All those in favour? Unanimous. Could somebody ask Mr Bowling to come back in for me? Sorry, Mr Wells.
Sorry, just to be absolutely clear, because we need to make sure the minute's right. So we're saying from today until 31st of March 27. That's right? Because I don't think I heard that from you, that was all.
Sorry, no, sorry, I didn't make it clear. So yes, it will be from today to the year end 2027. I was saying that his actual year would start on the... So moving on to agenda item 7, Treasury Management Report Quarter 2, 2025-26. I'm going to go to Ashley Baxter for this. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. This is the Treasury Management Quarterly Report for Quarter 2. I'm pleased to confirm the Council continues to comply with the prudential indicators. Investments are being placed in accordance with the investment strategy, which was approved by Council as part of the annual Treasury Management Strategy. Currently, the Council is receiving an average rate of return of 4.37%, which is above the average for other authorities in our benchmark comparison group. This is also leading to a positive impact of generating additional investment returns of £175,000 over the annual budgeted amount. This will help support the delivery of council services and corporate priority projects. Within the report, you'll find some detail. The interesting bit, I guess, is the Appendix A, which is the details of where, how long, and why we're investing what we have. So I propose that the committee note the contents, but I welcome any questions. And any difficult questions, I will ask for support from the finance team who have put this report together and to whom I'm therefore grateful.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you just walk me through 3.10 again, because it reads as though we only had 175 million of additional investment as opposed to expecting 2.579 million. Is it just the way that it's worded, or because it sounds like we're not getting as much as we thought we were going to get?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Woolley. Yes, I think it could be worded better. I think what it's saying is that, and I'm looking for support from this is forecasting additional income of £175,000 on top of the budgeted level of 2.579 million. So perhaps the word against could have been on top of, and that's probably something that I've changed to make it sweeter. So I hope that clears things up. We're £175,000 better off than we thought we would have done because of better investment.
I'd certainly like your treasurer nodding a bit more. Thank you.
So do you have any more questions? No? Okay, this report is for noting, so we'll do that. We go on to agenda item 8. Which is the report of Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Chair. This is the corporate plan for the KPIs for the corporate plan for the period July to September of this year. It is the third report to this committee. The corporate plan was passed in January 2024. The targets set by this committee in March of that year, 2024, and this is the third subsequent report. There are only 3 items that are specifically reported to this committee. 2 of them are, one of them is green and 2 of them are amber at the moment, one of which has been postponed for a while a new monitoring officer is established, because it was the lead of Graham Watts when he was here, and the work has sort of stalled since he left until we got a full-time replacement for the work that he covered. So that is delayed with the expectation of resolution within a reasonable time frame. So the recommendations are there before you. There are 3. It has been mentioned to me by
Mr Bowling. Shall I ask him to mention that, or he's suggesting that the targets across the board should be available to this committee, and obviously we have no objection to that. I wouldn't like to think that every target on every committee was brought here for detailed discussion, which I sort of said to him, but the idea that they need to see some things that are going on because of the relationship to governance is a thought of Mr Bowling. But it's not necessary, and so I put that for your consideration. I report the report to you and seek your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask you about this accreditation side of things, and that, as it says here, that we're on hold awaiting a new director of legal and governance. But because the accreditation is meant to be by the end of 2025, that doesn't seem as though it's going to be at all possible. So is it going to be delayed until 2026, or what are the timescales?
I think we said at the last meeting, I mentioned this at the last meeting of this, when we considered this, and I say it again today, that the work on it sort of became temporarily halted when certain member of staff left us, and it has been put on hold, and it's been reported as such until the new monitoring officer and director of legal affairs is appointed, and his appointment doesn't start till January. So the work will not start work again until January. So inevitably it will be January before the work starts on taking that forward. It was up to date when Graham left, and now it's there's been nobody leading it as such, and so it's going to take place in January.
Can I just pursue when is the accreditation likely then to come to fruition?
Sorry if I can interrupt there, Councillor Knowles. I think what Councillor Knowles is saying, that will happen. The new monitoring officer's got to get into position. Then it will be up to him to report, or her to report to us, his timescales. It's unfair of you to ask Councillor Knowles to do this right now, I feel. You know, you're asking somebody to tell you how somebody else will have their work done. That can't happen. So surely, you know, let's give the new monitoring officer, when they arrive, the courtesy of reporting back to us once they're in position.
If I may, Chairman, this is an East Midlands Council initiative, according to the papers. So presumably they have timescales that we signed up to.
They will be at some stage expecting, or maybe not expecting, an application from us with all the necessary information and the work done. And when that is done, and only when that work is done, will then our new senior manager take it to that body and seek approval for the work that we've done. There was work going on by Graham in terms of understanding what needed to be done, and the progress was being made on the committees, which were not particularly well attended by some of the political parties at the time, but were well attended by others. And when he decides that's his priority, he'll have a lot of things to do, one assumes, when he comes into his new job, and this will be one of many, and he will declare a timetable for a renewed timetable effect for taking this work forward.
Thank you for that, Councillor Knowles. Councillor Woolley.
Finally, Chairman, is there a cost implication to us as the Council?
Okay, do I have any more questions from the committee on that? Okay, that was oh, sorry, Alison.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Sorry, I just want to clarify a point that Councillor Knowles made at the start, was that all KPIs should come to this committee for review. Is that what you were requesting?
I was saying
the opposite.
Oh, okay.
I was saying that I don't believe that is necessary, but Alan has
suggested that it might be. So Alan can take that forward should he wish to do so.
Yeah, it's just from the point of view of the overall governance of the council as a whole, which this committee has a responsibility for. Therefore, to see not what the actual KPIs are doing, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that they exist and that they are actually being taken place. Because we did have it touched on, I think, a bit earlier, but for this whole committee to actually be able to see that everything's in place, that's all.
Sorry, Alison, we can come back to you on that.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, just to confirm that within the Constitution, it is the Overview and Scrutiny's responsibility to scrutinise the KPIs that fall within their remit. So that's not the role of this committee. Just
Yeah,
to clarify
totally
that,
agree.
thank
They
you.
would report, the scrutiny committees would report an issue to this committee. Sorry, Debbie, if I can come to you.
Just to add on to Alison's response, when the corporate plan went through full council, it went with the recommendations that the scrutiny committees had that responsibility. And as a kind of first year wrap up, the Cabinet received a full report on all of the KPIs at their June meeting this year. So there is that oversight that Cabinet have of the whole of how we're doing as a corporate plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So that was just for noting. No more final questions on that now? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 9, Counter Fraud Annual Report 24-25, and it's again back to Councillor Knowles.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a report which is required by this committee annually, and this is the report. It's been prepared by Tracy, but she, in her absence, I think Claire volunteered. Is that right, Claire? Claire has oversight over many of the things that are considered in the counter fraud report, and therefore it was considered appropriate for her to come and answer any difficult questions, and I'm very grateful to her. The report covers in many ways, mostly a housing benefit and council tax support and the single person discount. The details are on page 44, 46, not page, but items 4.4 to 4.6. The results so far are between 4.7 and 4.8, and the future plans 4.9 to 4.11, and an action plan for next year is included. Thank you. Ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Knowles. I've just got a question, if I can, first. The single person's review caught 664 cases, which is a great result by anybody's. Common sense and logic would tell you that next year, obviously, because you've caught so many the first time, that's going to drop off. So is the cost of the contract going forward, is that still worth doing once the easy cases are caught, if you get my drift on that question?
I'll let Claire answer that, but having questioned this myself, then it would appear that is the case, and it is well worth maintaining, but I'll let Claire give some details.
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. So far for this financial year's review, we've had 196 that have been removed, and that revenue generation is £196,259. We will continue with this. So this review this year is slightly different to previous years. Previous years, it's been a one-off piece of work. It's taken place between April and August, and we've reviewed cases during that time, and then we've stopped reviewing. This year and the next 2 years, it will be an ongoing monthly review. So I do expect that revenue generation will increase as the year continues. We do have some people that reapply for single person discount. Those cases will go back to the service provider to do a review to make sure that they are legitimately entitled to it. And we do also have a lot of new residents that come into liability that can also apply for single person discounts. So that churn is also being reviewed as well.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any other questions on this? Okay, can I have a proposal to accept the report? Councillor Wood, thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Stokes. All those in favour of accepting the report? Unanimous, thank you. We move on to agenda item 10, the Safeguarding Annual Report. And I'm being told this is a report of Virginia Moran, but am I going to you, Sarah, for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an overview of the Council's safeguarding and prevent responsibilities and activities during 24 and 25. Members are asked to note that 37 safeguarding referrals were made, 31 of which were adults and 6 were children, and all officers and elected members have completed the mandatory safeguarding and prevent training during 24 and 25. The Council continues to work closely with the Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children Partnership and Safeguarding Adults Board to strengthen practice and promote early intervention. Prevent activity remains an important area of focus, with 7 information requests received and appropriate support provided where needed. Safeguarding remains embedded across all council services, ensuring a consistent and a proactive approach to protecting our vulnerable residents. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just check with you the arrangements that we have as far as feeding this into the Lincolnshire, as you've just mentioned, the Children's and the Adults Boards, and likewise the cross-referencing back, because sadly we do know of cases where people live in one of the districts for a while and then find that, or they move because we have information that puts children, or indeed adults at this, but particularly children. Just want to be assured about that exchange of information, that not only the districts are feeding into, but are receiving information out of at a central level. Thank you.
Thank you. Myself as safeguarding lead and my colleagues Carol and Katie often attend Lincolnshire-wide safeguarding partnership meetings, so we ensure that communication between ourselves and Lincolnshire is strong. It's important to note that us as an authority, our responsibility is to make the referrals to Lincolnshire County Council, so it's within their remit that they have the responsibility for adult social care and children's services. In relation to data sharing, I mean, it can be a challenge, particularly if somebody moves around the districts. Obviously, there is data protection. However, when it is a safeguarding issue, that does override that on part. But ultimately, we do. I think the bottom line is we try our best to make sure that if someone is moving between the districts, that the support remains in place for that particular person. So, for example, if they're receiving a report from Adult Social Services, you'd like to think that it would be them that could know where their the movements of that person. So, ultimately, we try our best to make sure that communication is strong, and attending those partnership meetings is key to that, and that's something that me and the team continue to do. Thank you.
Councillor Lay.
Thank you. Can I just ask, are there any veterans included in any of these safeguarding referrals, or any service families at all? Do we break it down that far?
Thank you, Chair. We certainly capture it as part of our case management. So, for example, as you know, if the approach is homeless, it's something that we capture within that case. However, sometimes we are notified of safeguarding concerns and we don't have any information about that person. So it could be that an officer's come across a person and the safeguarding concerns when they do. It's important to note we don't go around as safeguarding officers. You know, we are officers going about our usual duties, and safeguarding concerns can crop up anywhere. So it's not something, we certainly don't hold, for example, a caseload of safeguarding cases. As I said, our duty is to refer the cases in to Lincolnshire County Council when we feel there might be a case for an adult social care or children's care. But also, it's important to note as well that myself and Carol and Katie, we do get notified of cases where it's not quite safeguarding. There might be mental health concerns, there might be drug and alcohol misuse concerns. So it's also a signposting service into the right area. So in answer to your question, it's something that's noted, and we know that there's a wealth of support available to veterans, and it's certainly something that we try and capture when the cases come to us. But like I said, we don't hold that caseload of safeguarding cases to then have a definitive number that we've dealt with in the past, if that answers your question.
Thank you. So my question sort of follows on from that, really. So I understand we've got no dedicated safeguarding posts, they're all officers adding it to their portfolio, if you like. So do we have the resilience if one of those officers leaves or is off for a period of illness or anything like that? Are you confident we've got enough resilience to cover that?
Thank you, Chair. I would say yes. So there is three of us. As I said, there's myself as lead, there's Carol Drury and Katie Conway. I would say yes. I think between the three of us, and also through the training, you know, we have relevant officers being the ones that have frequent contact with the general public. They have quite an intensive training course, so they are able to be equipped to spot the signs and then come to us if they need any sort of advice or guidance as to where to take the case. But certainly, I would say, you know, if one of us is off, another can pick up an inquiry for advice, and as I said, officers are equipped to sort of deal with cases as they arrive as well.
As long as you're happy with that, that's great, thank you. This report is just for noting, so unless any officers have got any reports, any members have got any questions, we'll mark that as noted, thank you. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to consider the work programme now. Mr. Wiles.
Can I just make a couple of observations, please? On the 21st of January proposed schedule, the annual governance statement will feature within the statement of accounts, so that won't be a separate item. I think the committee's already seen the draft version of that, so it will come back as the final version as part of the audited accounts. And just on that theme, we were talking with KPMG earlier about the actual date of that committee. So we've got a placeholder in for the 18th of February, but we'll obviously liaise with KPMG on the progress of their audit work. So it definitely will be there or thereabouts, but just to let committee know that that date may move backwards or forwards a few days. Thank you.
Are there any anything from the committee members on the work programme? No, okay, so that's all noted. Now we go on to any other business. I've been asked by Councillor Gill if you could bring a topic for discussion here. So I'm going to give Councillor Gill a few moments to put his case forward for the committee to discuss, and then I think I have a solution for that, but over to you, Councillor Gill, first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. By way of background, at the last regular full council, whilst we were amending the constitution, I proposed an additional amendment to the constitution in line with discussions I've had with colleagues across the chamber. I'm grateful that the chairman has permitted discussion of this at the first meeting since the full council. So by way of background, in May 2024, it's important to get the detail right here, this council introduced compulsory annual training for equality and diversity, inclusion, safeguarding, code of conduct and prevent. Now, this followed, in 2024, a period of real concern about member behaviour, 2021, 2022. And in 2022, there were 21 complaints received from across the world about offensive and outdated language used, actually in the Governance and Audit meeting, actually, from within this chamber. The leadership of the Council at the time worked with the LGA to do a peer review. And to the credit of the incoming administration, they continued this peer review, which reported that the LGA recommended mandatory training in those areas. We then gold-plated that manual training to make it annual. Now, coming to the point, what began with the best of intentions, and training is important, has become something of a cottage industry. Officers tied up, councillors in repeat sessions, time wasted on annual basis, repeating the same points in a tick box exercise. Training is important, especially for new councillors, but it should be meaningful, not mechanical. Once per term is sensible, every year doesn't make us better councillors, it just makes us busier councillors and burns a considerable amount of taxpayer money in the process. So, the amendment, and again I discussed this with Democratic Services, keeps the principle but reduces the waste and overkill. So let me go to the detail again. And the detail is Article 2 of the Constitution, Members of the Council, Item 2.7, Subsection 3, Subpoint 3, be reworded as follows. The current wording: failure to attend the training and development sessions listed in 2.7 within 6 months of the Council's annual meeting or 6 months of election from office means that a member is unable to act on any committees or bodies which it's been appointed until they have attended all mandatory training and development sessions. Now, the amendment is to reword that to take out the words within 6 months of the Council's annual meeting, but retain the points about 6 months from being elected to office. It's important that all councillors are trained, but I don't believe we need annual training on the same 6 subjects, unless there are meaningful changes in the legislation. I mean, I counted, I once did the same training course 7 times in a period of about 18 months across several organisations. That's not effective use of people's time, that's not effective use of people's of taxpayer money. So the amended wording, again, this is the clause in Article 2, Members of the Council, Item 2.7, Subsection 3.3. Failure to attend the training and development sessions listed in 2.7, Subsection 2, within 6 months of election to office means that a member is unable to act on any committees or bodies with which they have been appointed until they've attended all mandatory training. So again, the content is the same, but the annual nature is taken, and the sanction is the same, but the annual nature reduces the paper trace, reduces the waste. We should be focusing on our residents and on what's important to South Kesteven, not this cottage industry of annual training. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to bring this back at the first meeting since full council. As I said, I'd welcome this committee's thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm prepared to have a discussion for a few minutes on this, but my proposal for this would be that we put this forward, have a discussion now, put the thoughts forward to the new monitoring officer in January when they arrive, and ask them to come back to us with a report on it. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Chairman, and you heard me say earlier, you know my views on the amount of training that we've had. However, bearing in mind that the Secretary of State, Steve Reed, is bringing in proposals for a new standards regime, etc., in this government, would we be as well to wait and see what those suggestions are, and then take the suggestion forward?
That's exactly what I'm saying. So really, I think if you wanted to discuss this, you can do, but I would suggest that we as a committee wait for the new monitoring officer to arrive and ask them to look at it and come back to us with a report. But the monitoring officer will take that into account, Councillor Hawley. That's the whole point of having the monitoring officer there to advise us. So, yes, I mean, if you guys want to discuss that some more, if you want to ask Councillor Gill any questions on his proposal, I think basically what he's saying is you will do the compulsory training once per term, basically in a nutshell, and the other training is obviously not compulsory. So, but I don't think it's really for us to hear now to possibly to give an opinion on that. I'm happy to take advice of the committee, but if you're of a mind to say that we just put this forward to the new monitoring officer when they arrive. Councillor Stoke.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good way forward. I think I'm right in saying that Councillor Gill mentioned that he took the training across 7 organisations, blimey. But I understand if you've taken it through an accredited organisation that you don't have to do it carries forward to here. So maybe he didn't need to do it 7 times, but I'm supportive of what you say.
Okay, so sorry, Councillor Null.
Yes, just I have no objection whatsoever of looking at the options and so on, but I think we need to continue with options that take account of fresh legislation and so on and so forth, and we have to build that in because there are substantial, let's say licensing, where there are sometimes major changes in legislation which I know that's not compulsory for everybody, but certainly for anybody in the licensing committee has to attend that one, and I would not want to reduce the concentration on the legal requirements of licensing, and there may be others the same that I can't think off the top of my head, but by all means let's reduce the burden but not reduce the importance of training, and some things may be better done as a refresher and done a second time or even a third time, but as a refresher. So because there are some things that I've been to on a few occasions and learned again or learned afresh. So let's not jump too quickly, but I've no objection discussing and taking it forward.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I tend to agree that for the 4 mandatory sessions that once a year does seem particularly regular. However, I disagree that once every 4 years is enough, because when you first are elected as a councillor or re-elected as a councillor, everything's coming at you from every direction and you're trying to take it all in, and it takes you a little bit of time to kind of understand what the processes are. So maybe there's somewhere in between, like an every year, or sorry, an every 18 months or every 2 years. I mean, our staff have to do training as well. The reason we do it is so that we are better at our jobs, and I think anyone that says that they're not going to learn something from a particular training is going into it with the wrong attitude. As far as we can, I believe that we use our own officers to do the training, but there are some things where we do need an external opinion. We have had feedback on some of the training that has been provided by external providers, where people have said, I kind of don't, I'm challenged by that, or I'd like to challenge the way it's delivered. Well, that's good, because that's evidence of progress. When I went on my first equality diversity training, I learned a bit. The second one, I was kind of better. And now I do feel like I understand the subject, and you can go deeper into the subject matter further on. What won't happen between now and the new monitoring officer arriving, or I mean, I agree with the proposal that you're putting forward, that you discuss it at a later time when the monitoring officer is here. What won't happen is that the rules will not change between now and a decision of this meeting and council. So those people who have not done the mandatory training will not be able to sit on committees, and that's the rule that we as a council have made, and anyone that hasn't joined in I think there's 4 mandatory training: code of conduct, prevent, safeguarding and diversity, equality. There have been many opportunities for people to do that training, and I know that there are people who haven't done all the required training. Well, that ship has sailed. Obviously, when we've got 2 by-elections coming up, there'll be 2 new councillors, hopefully soon, and they will be offered the same training. So there will be another opportunity in the not too distant future. But if people have chosen not to do the training that's been offered several times, then they are not taking their responsibilities as a councillor seriously, and will not be able to participate as committee members.
Thank you for that, Councillor Baxter. Just going to give Councillor Selby, welcome to the committee, Councillor Selby. Just going to give you the last word on this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I understand where Councillor Gill's coming from, and he does make some fair points. However, once every 4 years, I agree with you, it should be a little bit more than that. I've always felt biannually would probably be the way forward. But yes, taking into account, as the leaders just said, when you get new members coming along, and we're going to have 2 new members in the near future. I absolutely agree with what you're saying with regarding waiting for the monitoring officer. We're not far away from the new monitoring officer. 6-7 weeks, is it, something like that? So let's wait and see what comes from that, and yeah, let's have the discussion on it by all means. So I welcome the comments. Welcome him bringing this forward. It's something that I think we really do need to discuss, because each year you think, well, training. You get training every other week, and it just seems to be non-stop. And then it comes around, before you know it, it comes around again. There needs to be some sort of balance on this, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I understand where Councillor Gill's coming from, but thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Gill, I'll let you one last come back on that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. As I say, I acknowledge the points. Councillor Knowles, I think you actually spoke to a totally different point. As I say, the compulsory training, when there's legislative changes, of course we have to change when there are legislative changes. There has to be retraining if there's legislative changes. I think I made that point a couple of times in my thing. What you were talking about there is completely different. I acknowledge the point about the incoming monitoring officer. I'm grateful for confirming that. So it sounds as if we're programming this into the work plan in Q1 of next year to discuss it again. And as I say, I welcome the comments from Councillor Selby and others that this is something that needs discussing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Thanks for bringing that. I agree with you. There's definitely scope for improvement, change there. But I do want, before we put anything on the work plan, I do want to get some input from the new monitoring officer. Also, as Councillor Woolley said, to look at any new legislation that might come through in the meantime. But thank you for bringing that forward. Appreciate that. With that in mind, I will call this meeting closed at 15:10. Our next meeting on 21st of January 2025. Thank you.